The galaxy had forgotten the black ship. 30 years ago, it had disappeared during a deep space mission near the edge of the dead zone, a part of space where nothing lived, not even light. No wreckage was found, no distress call. It was as if the ship had vanished into thin air. The records called it an unexplained loss, and after some time, people stopped asking questions. The dead didn't speak, and space had no memory, or so they thought. Captain Wraith never forgot. He was young when it happened, just a junior officer on the bridge. He saw the ship vanish on the scanners, swallowed by a dark wave that made no sense. He reported it, of course, but no one believed him. The official report blamed sensor malfunction. But Wraith had seen something move in that darkness, something that watched, something that waited. Now, 30 years later, he was retired, living quietly on a station near Titan. That's when the signal came. It was weak, broken, and old, but it was real. A distress call from the black ship. Same ID code. Same encryption pattern. It had no right to exist. The signal had been bouncing through deep space, finally caught by a passing Terran listening probe. The message was short. Just 5 words. "We never left the ship." That was enough. Fleet Command called Wraith back. They wanted him on the team. Not as captain. He was too old for that now, but as an advisor. No one else alive had ever seen the black ship. Wraith didn't hesitate. He knew something was wrong, deeply wrong. He could feel it. The dead zone had never given back anything before, so why now? The mission was rushed. A small scout vessel called the Starling was prepared. It had a crew of 8 scientists, engineers, a pilot, and 1 Marine squad. Wraith joined them at the last minute, silent as he watched the crew laugh and joke. They didn't understand where they were going. They thought this was just another mystery to solve. Wraith knew better. As they reached the edge of the dead zone, everything changed. The stars behind them faded like a curtain falling. In front of them, darkness. A strange, living kind of darkness. Not empty, but heavy. It made the crew uneasy. The Starling's lights didn't reach far. Scanners began to flicker. Time felt slower. Sound carried strangely. One of the engineers joked it felt like being inside a giant heartbeat. Then they saw it. The black ship was just there, floating like it never moved. No damage, no drift, just sitting in the void. Lights off, engines dead, like a tomb. But Wraith noticed something the others didn't. The hull was too clean. No asteroid marks, no space dust. It looked untouched, like it had been preserved or protected. The team ran a scan. Life signs, 0. Energy levels, almost nothing. But the signal was still being sent. From inside, the captain of the Starling wanted to board right away, but Wraith warned them. He told them what he remembered, about the dark wave and the silence, about the way the ship disappeared without trace. But curiosity is stronger than caution. The boarding party suited up and entered through the rear docking bay. The inside of the ship was cold and dead. No lights, no sound. The corridors were clean, too clean. It felt like something had wiped the place clean of time. They found empty rooms, closed doors, and old equipment that still looked new. But there were signs, subtle ones, scratches on the walls, symbols carved into metal, shapes that made no sense. One of the scientists, a young woman named Lynn, found a data terminal still working. It showed a looping message. "They're still here." When asked who, the screen glitched and went dark. Lynn laughed nervously, saying it was probably an old AI glitch. Wraith didn't laugh. Neither did the Marine who swore he saw a shadow move in the hallway. There were no heat signatures, no movement, but they all felt it. Something was watching. Back on the Starling, the crew tracked the boarding party's vitals. Everything looked normal until one of the team, Callan, disappeared from the monitor. No heartbeat, no suit signal. Gone. Just like that. His partner turned to look. and Callan was standing right behind him, silent, staring. The rest of the team rushed to him, relieved. But Reyes noticed something. Callan's eyes weren't blinking. His mouth was moving slightly, like he was whispering, but no sound came out. The Marine tried to scan him, but Callan pushed his hand away with inhuman strength. Then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Back on the Starling, Wraith stood by the window, staring at the black ship. He knew what was happening. The ship hadn't come back alone. It had brought something with it. Something that used the signal like bait. Something that didn't belong in this universe. As the crew prepared to leave the black ship, Reyes whispered to himself, "It's not the ship we found. It's what found us." The shadows inside the corridors stretched longer, bending in unnatural ways. One by one, the lights flickered and went out. The hunt had begun. The docking bay was supposed to be empty, silent, safe. But as the boarding team returned with Callan, everything felt wrong. His suit showed no damage. His vital signs were normal, too normal. Perfect, as if he hadn't spent 30 minutes lost inside a dead ship. But his eyes told a different story. They didn't move, didn't blink. And when Captain Rice looked into them, he saw nothing looking back. The Starling's commander ordered medical scans, but Callan refused. He stood still in the middle of the airlock, like a statue, lips moving but no sound coming out. When asked what happened, he finally spoke. Just 3 words, barely a whisper. "They marked me." The room went quiet. No one understood what that meant, but Reyes did. He had heard of things like this during the old missions. Strange disappearances. Survivors who came back not quite right. Most were written off as space trauma. But Reyes knew better. Some things out there were worse than death. The crew moved carefully. The rest of the boarding team went through decontamination while Callan was escorted to medical. The doctor ran full scans. Nothing showed up. No foreign tech, no parasites, not even high stress levels. Yet the doctor swore she could hear breathing in the room. 2 sets, though only 1 man was there. Back on the black ship, the second boarding group went deeper into the ship. They found more strange symbols etched into the walls, curved lines, and sharp corners that seemed to shimmer in the light. At first, they thought it was just old alien graffiti. But when one of the crew tried to record them, the footage turned black. Static filled their comms for a few seconds. And during that static, everyone heard something different. A whisper, a memory, a fear. Reyes stayed on the Starling, watching the scans and audio feeds. One of the recordings from Lynn's helmet caught his attention. It played a soft hum, like a heartbeat echoing through metal. But when Reyes slowed it down, he realized it wasn't just noise. It was a voice, speaking a name. His name. That's when the lights flickered across the Starling. Just for a second. But that second felt long. Callan began to move again, this time walking through the ship without speaking. He didn't respond to questions. He didn't look at anyone. When the Marine tried to stop him, Callan stared into his eyes and said, "It wants to see." Then he collapsed. The ship's AI, Vera, started to glitch. Doors opened by themselves. Internal sensors gave false readings, showing movement in empty halls. One engineer swore she saw a tall shadow in the mess hall, standing still in a corner. When she turned to face it, it was gone. But a trail of black liquid was left on the floor. It evaporated seconds later. Back on the black ship, Lynn found an old journal tucked inside the captain's chair. She opened it and froze. It was Reyes' handwriting. Pages full of drawings, names, warnings. But Reyes had never been on the black ship. He never wrote that journal. On the last page, there was a message written in red. "The Wraith sees you now." She radioed the Starling, her voice shaking. "Captain, there's something wrong. This ship knows us. It knew we were coming." Then her signal cut off. Static again. But this time, it laughed. Softly, coldly. Reyes ordered them to pull back, but it was too late. The airlocks jammed. The lights on the black ship turned on. one by one, down the hallway, leading somewhere. A low hum filled both ships, not from the engines, not from any machine. It felt like a breathing sound, a slow, deep inhale. And with it, a sudden chill ran through every wall, every system. On the Starling, Callan stood up again, eyes glowing faintly. His voice was no longer just his. It was layered, human, and something else. He pointed at Reyes and said, "You opened the door. Now they are coming." In that moment, a shape moved past the window. Just a flicker, too fast to see. But everyone felt it, something huge and silent circling the ship. Not a creature, not a ship. A shadow with weight, a presence older than time. Reyes knew now. The signal wasn't a call for help. It was a lure. A trap left by something that wanted to be found. And now it had them. In the hallway, Lynn's scream echoed through the comms, cutting off with a wet, tearing sound. Then silence. One by one, the lights inside the black ship started to die again. But now, something was walking through the dark. And it wasn't human. 2 seconds. Callan wasn't the same. He looked human. He sounded human. But something deep inside him had changed. After his strange collapse, he was taken to the medbay and kept under watch. At first, he stayed quiet, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, barely breathing. Then, slowly, he began to whisper again. The doctor leaned closer to listen, but the words made her step back. Over and over, Callan repeated the same phrase. "The Wraith marked us. Now we belong to the dark." No one knew what the Wraith was. The term wasn't in any logs, not in any alien files, not even in old myths. But the way Callan said it, like it was a name, like it had meaning, made everyone uneasy. Captain Rice listened to the recording and froze. It was the same voice he'd heard in the static earlier. The same whisper from a heartbeat-like hum. This wasn't just a ghost story. Something was alive inside that ship, and it had already touched one of them. As the crew argued about what to do, strange things began to happen. Lights flickered even in sealed rooms. Equipment turned on by itself. The main comms started playing faint voices, old messages, but with twisted words. In the mess hall, the AI Veorair reported that one of the crew was present, but no one was there. Security cameras showed brief flashes of tall, dark shapes standing still for a split second, then gone. Reyes walked down the main corridor, deep in thought. He passed a window and paused. Outside, the black ship floated in the void, unchanged, but something shimmered around it now, a faint mist, barely visible, like heat waves, but cold. He turned to call the pilot when a shadow passed behind him in the reflection. He spun around. Nothing there, but the cold stayed. Inside the black ship, the boarding party had split into 2 groups. Lynn and her teammate Jen had gone deeper into engineering. The others stayed near the command deck. Lynn found more of the strange symbols, glowing slightly now, as if they responded to touch. She didn't dare get too close, but she took pictures, though none of them showed up in the data logs later. Every file was just black, with faint lines that seemed to move if you stared too long. Jen found something worse. In a locked room, she discovered 7 crew suits, empty, standing upright. No bodies, just suits, and something inside the helmets. Black ash, like burned dust. The helmets were all cracked from the inside. She backed away slowly, but as she turned to leave, one of the suits shifted, just a little, enough to make her run. Back on the Starling, Reyes reviewed the old journal Lynn had found. It was definitely his handwriting. Page after page, covered in words he didn't remember writing. Don't let it know your name. It learns from fear. Once marked, never free. And over again. The Wraith watches from the cracks. Reyes slammed the book shut. His hands were shaking. He looked at the crew list. 3 people were already missing. 1 was acting strange. And the rest were seeing things that shouldn't exist. They had walked into a trap, and now it was closing. In the medbay, Callan sat up suddenly. He looked directly into the camera and said, "Captain Wraith, it remembers you." Then he smiled again. A slow, stretched smile that didn't reach his eyes. His mouth opened wide, and something black leaked out, like smoke. The doctor screamed and backed away, calling for help. The crew rushed in, but Callan was unconscious again. No smoke, no strange smile, just silence. But the security footage played differently. It showed Callan looking directly into the camera, and behind him, just for a second, a tall, thin shape with glowing eyes. No one else saw it in real time, only on the video. That night, if it could be called night in deep space, none of the crew could sleep. Dreams came, cold and sharp, whispers in unknown languages, memories twisted into nightmares. Rise dreamed of the black ship opening like a flower, and something stepping out, something with no face, but endless eyes, watching, waiting. He woke up with a jolt, sweat cold on his skin. He rushed to the bridge. There, the pilot was gone. Her chair spun slowly. A trail of black ash led to the airlock, and it was open. Ray stared into the camera feed. The pilot was walking toward the black ship without a suit, smiling. The AI reported no life signs, no oxygen loss, no alarm. She was already marked. Rays gave the order to seal the ship, but it didn't respond. Doors remained open, lights dimmed. The temperature dropped by 5 degrees. The crew started panicking. Lynn called from the black ship, voice shaky, "Something's in here with us. It's not hiding anymore." Her last words before the signal cut, "We shouldn't have come." And somewhere in the dark halls of both ships, footsteps echoed, slow, heavy, coming closer. Darkness now lived in both ships. The Starling was no longer safe. The crew had locked every door, sealed the control room, and shut off unnecessary systems to hide from the presence moving through the halls. But the air felt colder with each hour. Whispers leaked through the walls, voices calling them by name, voices of friends who were already gone. Captain Rice didn't sleep. He sat in the main chair, hands tight around the console, eyes locked on the black ship. It hadn't moved since the pilot walked into it without a suit. No signs of her, no body, just the same still shape floating in the black void, glowing faintly now, like it was waking up. Inside the black ship, Lynn and Jen were trapped. They had made it to the engineering section, but the halls behind them had changed again. Doors moved, walls shifted. No matter how many turns they took, they always ended up back in the same room. A small chamber with no lights and a mirror that didn't show their reflections. Jen was starting to lose it. "This ship's alive," she said. "It's playing with us." Lynn tried to stay calm, using her scanner to find power sources, but the scanner was broken. Every screen was black. Sometimes it showed their own vitals, but labeled them as compromised. Then it would reset and go blank again. That's when they heard it. Footsteps. Slow, dragging, heavy. But they were alone. Jen grabbed her flashlight and aimed it toward the hallway. Nothing. Just metal walls. But the sound got closer. Lynn whispered, "We need to move." They turned left, ran for the far hatch, and slanted behind them. But as they turned around, Lynn froze. Another suit was standing in the hallway ahead. Empty. Or not empty. It looked like the ones they saw earlier, clean, undamaged. But this one had something inside the helmet. A dark shape, a shape that slowly raised its head. The eyes behind the glass opened. Not human eyes. Bright, sharp, and endless. Jen screamed and fired her blaster. The suit collapsed, but then the lights flickered, and it was gone. Just gone. The hallway was empty again. No marks. No suit. As if it had never been there. They ran again, but this time the corridors didn't shift. The ship let them go, at least for now. Back on the Starling, Rise received another message from the black ship. Just 5 words, spoken in Callan's voice. "You are already inside it." "What does that mean?" the comms officer asked. "We're outside the ship." Wraith didn't answer, because he wasn't sure they were. He checked the systems again. Hull readings were wrong. The outer walls of the Starling had changed shape slightly, like they were bending. The ship's map didn't match the design anymore. Rooms were showing up that didn't exist before. And the air quality, it was shifting. A new chemical had appeared, not deadly, but different. Something was rewriting the Starling. One of the Marines, Hart, started acting strange. He stopped speaking. Just sat still, staring at the floor. When Wraith tried to talk to him, Hart finally said one word. "Echoes." "What echoes?" Wraith asked. Hart looked up. His eyes were wide. "The ones pretending to be us." That night, Hart vanished. No signs of forced entry. His door never opened. The cameras showed nothing, just a flash of static, and then an empty bed. Wraith knew what was happening. The Wraith didn't need to kill them all at once. It was breaking them slowly, bending their minds, making them doubt each other. He ordered all remaining crew into the command center and sealed it. Lynn and Jen still hadn't made it back. The others wanted to leave, to escape while they still could. But the engines wouldn't start. The fuel was full. The systems were clean. Still, the ship refused to move. "We're not in control anymore," Wraith said. "We're passengers now." Suddenly, the lights turned off. For a moment, there was only breathing. Then, from the darkness, came a new sound. Knocking. 3 knocks. Slow. Metal on metal. Then the door control lit up. Someone was outside. The scanner showed a human life sign. The name, Callan. He was dead, or lost, or worse. The crew stared at the door. Then a voice came from behind them. "Why are you hiding?" They turned. Wraith raised his weapon, but there was no one there. Just a whisper in the dark, one that sounded like each of them, their own voices coming from the shadows. Panic broke out. Someone tried to unseal the door. Wraith stopped him, yelling, "That's not Callan out there." But it was too late. The door opened, and standing there was Hart, or something wearing his face. He smiled, stepped in, and the lights went out again. And the screaming began. The Wraith had entered. The lights didn't come back on for 5 minutes. When they did, half the command crew was gone. Captain Wraith stood in the middle of the room, shaking. Blood smeared the floor. A console sparked. But there were no bodies, just open suits and black dust, like the others before. The door to the hallway was wide open. And the air, it felt thick, heavy, like breathing smoke underwater. Wraith looked around. Only 3 people were left. The comms officer, Malik, a young engineer, Kara, and himself. The rest, taken, or worse. They sealed the door again, even though it didn't seem to matter anymore. The ship was no longer obeying them. The control systems flickered on and off. The AI was silent now. And the Starling's layout had changed again. Rooms were in the wrong place. Some doors led to blank walls. Others led to places no one remembered building. Wraith whispered to himself, "We're inside the Wraith now. We never left that ship." Meanwhile, Lynn and Jen had finally found a way out of the black ship. After hours of running in circles, a hatch opened on its own. No lights, just open air between them and the void. The Starling floated in the distance, but it looked different. Its surface glowed faintly, like veins under skin, like it had started to become part of the other ship. Jen didn't want to go back. "That's not our ship anymore," she said. "We don't have a choice," Lynn replied. "We can't stay here." They launched in an emergency pod. As they crossed the space between the ships, they saw it. A shadow moving along the outer hull of the Starling. Long arms, no legs, floating like smoke, watching them. They didn't speak again until they docked. But the airlock didn't greet them. No lights, no voices, just silence. As they stepped back onto the Starling, Lynn whispered, "We're already too late." Inside, the halls were twisted. They saw writing on the walls, scratched by hand, desperate. Things like, "The Wraith knows what you fear. Don't trust your own eyes. They speak with dead voices." Jen covered her mouth, trying not to cry. They moved quickly, weapons ready, but no one attacked. No one greeted them. It was like the ship was holding its breath. Then they heard footsteps. Not ahead, not behind, above them. Something crawled through the vents. Fast, heavy. Then, whispering. Jen aimed her gun up, but the ceiling split open before she could fire. A shape dropped down. Not quite a person. Its face was blank, its limbs too long, and it moved like water, smooth, slow, patient. It didn't attack. It stared at them, and then it spoke. "Where do you think you're going?" The voice was Reyes. Lynn fired. The shape vanished like smoke. They ran. Somehow, they'd made it to the command center. Rise opened the door when he saw them on the camera, still alive. Malik and Kara helped drag them inside. Everyone looked pale, tired, wrong. "Is this still real?" Kara asked softly. No one answered. Lynn showed Reyes what she'd found on the black ship. Data logs, broken, corrupted, but some of them still readable. The logs didn't belong to any human crew. The language wasn't one they knew, but something in the logs had been auto-translated. One entry stood out. "Experiment failed. The Wraith cannot be contained. It feeds on fear, memory, and identity. Entire crew lost. Ship quarantined. Do not enter." Malik's hands shook. They didn't build that ship. They were trying to trap something inside it. Reyes nodded. "And we let it out." The temperature dropped again. Ice formed on the walls. Then they heard voices in the hallway. Familiar ones. Laughter. The sound of crewmates who were already gone. Kara stood up. "That's my sister." "No," Reyes said firmly. "That's not her. The Wraith is using them." But Kara ran for the door. She opened it before anyone could stop her. Nothing was outside, just her own reflection in the glass wall. Then the reflection moved, without her, and pulled her in. The door slammed shut. Kara was gone. Lynn backed away. "We can't fight this. It's inside everything." Jen whispered, "What if it's inside us?" Reyes looked down at his hands. They were shaking, but not from fear. Something else. A coldness that had been there since they left Earth, since the first signal. He spoke quietly. "We need to destroy the ship. Both of them." Malik stared. "That means we die too." Reyes nodded. "But if we don't, it spreads." Lynn looked at the data logs again. One last message flickered on the screen. Just 4 words. "It remembers your face." Outside, the black ship began to glow. And inside the Starling, something opened its eyes. The ship was changing. The Starling no longer felt like a human vessel. Its hulls twisted like veins. Its walls pulsed like breathing skin. Lights flickered not from damage, but as if they were blinking, watching. And deep inside the ship, something had awakened. Captain Reyes stood with Lynn, Jen, and Malik in the command center. They were all that remained of the original crew. No one spoke anymore unless they had to. Even breathing felt dangerous, like the Wraith could hear them. "We have one chance," Reyes said quietly. "We set the engines to overload. Detonate the core. Take both ships out." Lynn nodded slowly. "We'll never make it out in time." "I know," he replied. Jen didn't argue. She stared at the floor, jaw clenched. Malik whispered, "I don't want to die here." Reyes looked at him. "Then we make sure no one else ever does." But even as they prepared, the ship fought back. The control systems rewired themselves. The AI was gone. Doors refused to open. Maps changed again, and strange symbols now pulsed on the screens, like writing, but alive. They moved carefully through the ship toward the engine room. Lynn carried the data core from the black ship. Maybe it held answers. Maybe it was just bait, but they couldn't leave it behind. As they walked through the lower decks, the temperature dropped. Ice crawled across the walls. Their breath became fog. They passed rooms filled with black dust and shadows that moved when no one was looking. Then they saw Kara. She was standing in the hallway ahead, smiling. Her skin was pale, eyes all black, but her voice sounded the same. "You don't have to run," she said. "He just wants to talk." They stopped. Rise raised his weapon. "You're not Kara." The thing laughed, her laugh, but empty. Then her skin cracked, and something inside started to push out. A shape made of smoke and teeth. They ran. The thing chased them, crawling along the walls like liquid shadow. It didn't need to touch them. It only needed them to look at it. Jen stumbled. Malik grabbed her arm and pulled her up. "We're almost there," Rise shouted. They'd reached the engine control room. Rise sealed the door behind them. For now, they were safe. But the engine was wrong. It had changed. What should have been metal and plasma was now different. The core looked like a beating heart, black and glowing, connected to veins that pulsed with cold light. The Wraith had infected the reactor. It was feeding on the ship's power, becoming stronger. Lynn stepped forward, looking at the controls. "We can still overload it, but it'll take time." "How much?" Rise asked. 10 minutes, maybe more. They began the process. Rise and Lynn worked on the manual overrides. Jen and Malik stood guard with weapons drawn, though they knew bullets wouldn't stop what was coming. The ship trembled, not from damage, from a heartbeat. Slow, loud, alive. Then the whispers started again. Inside their heads, each of them heard different voices. Rise heard his own voice, begging for help. Lynn heard her sister. Malik heard laughter. Jen heard the word home over and over again. "Don't listen," Rise said, teeth clenched. "It wants inside your mind." The lights began to die. One by one, a thick fog poured from the vents, cold, black, filled with shapes that moved without form. Then the door began to melt. Not open, melt. The Wraith had found them. Rise shouted, "Hold the line. Just a few more minutes." From the fog stepped forms, copies of the lost crew, faces they knew, twisted by shadows. Kara, Hart, Callan, all smiling, all wrong. Jen opened fire. Malik screamed and kept shooting. The shadows didn't fall, they just slowed. But that was enough. The countdown reached 1 minute. Then something grabbed Malik. A shadow wrapped around his leg, dragging him toward the open hallway. Rise tried to pull him back, but Malik looked up with hollow eyes and said, "It's already inside me." Then he was gone. 30 seconds. The engine core glowed brighter. It began to pulse faster. The Wraith screamed, not with sound, but inside their heads. Lynn fell to her knees, clutching her skull. Jen helped her up. 10 seconds. Rise looked around. Only 3 of them left. He smiled sadly. "It ends here." Then the Wraith stepped into the room. It didn't have a face, just a shape of endless eyes and twisting smoke. It reached for them, not with hands, but with memory. Flashes of Earth, childhood, regrets, fear. The countdown reached 0, and the world went white, then black, and silent. You said, silence, endless silence, and then breathing. Lynn opened her eyes slowly. The world was blurry, cold, quiet. She was floating, alone. She looked around and saw nothing but black space, stars far away, and no sign of the starling. No sign of the black ship either, only wreckage, small pieces drifting around her like dust. Her escape pod had launched just before the explosion. She didn't remember pressing the button. Maybe someone else did. Maybe the ship did. Maybe it didn't matter. She was alive. Barely. She checked the controls. Life support. 3 hours left. No signal. No connection. Just her, lost in the cold. She whispered, "Reyes? Jen?" No reply. She closed her eyes. Elsewhere, a small ship picked up the shockwave from the blast. It was a long-range science vessel, weeks away from its home port. The crew wasn't military, just explorers. When their sensors detected the explosion, they changed course. And they found the wreckage. The black ship was gone. The Starling was torn in half, twisted, melted. Nothing could have survived. But they found a pod. One survivor. Lynn. They pulled her aboard. She woke up in a white room. Lights bright. Air clean. A doctor stood over her. "You're safe," he said gently. "We found you." Lynn didn't speak at first. She just stared at the wall. "Can you tell us what happened?" the doctor asked. She blinked, then nodded slowly, and started talking. 3 weeks later, Lynn sat in front of a government panel on Earth. Military, science officers, and intelligence agents watched her through cold glass. She told them everything. About the signal, the Wraith, the black ship, the transformation of the Starling, the voices, the fear, the deaths. About Reyes and Jen, about the reactor, about the explosion. When she finished, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, one of the officers leaned forward. "Do you have any proof? Any data?" Lynn handed them the core she took from the black ship. "It's damaged," she said, "but there's something still inside. It's not dead." They took it and locked it away. For study. Months passed. Lynn was discharged quietly. No public story. No news reports. The mission was erased from the records. The Starling was listed as lost in deep space. Lynn returned to a quiet town, far from cities, far from people. But she couldn't forget. At night, she heard them. The whispers. Faint. Soft, just under the sound of the wind. Sometimes she saw shadows in mirrors that didn't match her movements. Sometimes she woke up in rooms slightly different from how she remembered them. One night, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She didn't feel alone. Her reflection stared back, but something was wrong. Its eyes didn't blink. And then it spoke, with Raya's voice. "You brought it back." She stepped away, heart racing. The lights flickered. The glass cracked. And from the crack, black smoke began to pour out. Deep underground, the core was sealed in a special vault. Scientists in protective suits studied it every day. They thought they were in control, thought it was dormant. But one morning, the vault was empty. The cameras showed nothing. The locks were untouched. The alarms never sounded. The core had vanished. In its place was a message burned into the floor. "We are many now." In the stars, somewhere far from Earth, a signal echoed. Not a distress call, not a warning, a beacon. And something ancient heard it. Something hungry. The black ship had been destroyed, but the Wraith had survived. Not as one creature, as many. As echoes, as memories. Inside minds, inside dreams, and inside the systems of ships still traveling through deep space, quietly infecting, learning, waiting. Humanity had fought back, but the war had just begun, and the Wraith was only getting stronger.